Hello, this is Javier with Javi's Woodshop bringing you your business tip of the week. This week, how to calculate your hourly rate. In this video, we're going to answer 3 questions. How much is your time worth now? How much should your time be worth? And how much do you realistically want your time to be worth? My Uncle Wilbur decided to open up a small business and sell his bedposts. All his friends said his bedposts were the greatest bedposts they've ever seen. Wilbur was proud of his bedposts. Wilbur had all the tools to make his posts, and after years of turning, he had the experience as well. He spent hours on those posts. He calculated that a post would take $2.40 of wood and 60 cents or so of stained materials. He sold his posts for $10 each, figuring, hey, that's a $7 profit. Poor Uncle Wilbur. Putting aside electricity, insurance, and business licenses and other related costs, what Wilbur never calculated was his own valuable time. Everyone's value is different. Although it is not always the case, generally, people who spend their time doing more profitable work are valued more than those who don't. Whether you want more income, more friendship, or more freedom, it all comes down to how you invest your time. Calculating your time is relatively simple. But think about this first. If someone offers to pay you 10 cents an hour for 1 hour of work, you would say no and think that person's completely out of his mind. However, if someone offers to pay you $15,000 for an hour of work, chances are most of us would likely be accepting that offer immediately. Those are very simple decisions, but the choice is tougher somewhere in the middle. Would you work for $2 an hour? For 5? For 7? For 15? 50? 100? Should you buy a plane ticket to save you a day in travel or go by train and save the money? Should you pay a painter $2,000 to save you a week's worth of work? What's your time worth compared to the painter? Every day we use our feelings to make these decisions without knowing what our time is actually worth. And we make excuses why we made the wrong decision. We all have an hourly value, but very few people can actually tell you what it is. Here's the first method in calculating what 1 hour of your time is really worth. The simple method. It'll take some preparation. Track your time. Jot down what you're doing every hour for a period of 3 months. Work, driving, eating, leisure time, sleep. It doesn't matter. Jot it all down. Similarly, track everything you earn and from which source, whether it's work-related or additional income sources. Write it down. Now that you have all your information, let's do a few calculations. Divide the total money you earned by the hours you've spent earning it. Sound simple? Sure. Stick to annual calculations. Yes, I know I asked for quarterly information, but I assume that you can multiply everything by 4 to get the annual amount. If not, well, either hire an accountant or stay out of entrepreneurship. At this point from now on, we'll be using annual figures. For instance, if you work 40 hours a week times 50 weeks a year, take 2 weeks off for vacation, that's 2,000 hours per year. Let's say you earn, or they pay you, $25,000 per year. $25,000 divided by 2,000 hours equals $12.50 an hour. Simple, right? Nope. That number is blatantly misleading. Many more factors come into play, and you have to reasonably figure out which ones apply for your particular circumstances. Suppose you drive an hour to and from work each day. That's 500 extra hours a year needed to earn that money. Now suppose you pay $48 a day for daycare. And suppose you need to drive to and from daycare 15 minutes away. That's $12,000 less you're making in this job because of that expense, and 125 hours more because of the drive. So now it's $13,000 divided by 2,625 hours. Would it surprise you that you're only earning $4.95 an hour? Dear Uncle Wilbur is a custom cabinet maker. And based on other cabinet makers, he set a value of his time of $50 an hour. An average cabinet will cost him $200 in materials. and it should take him 36 hours to complete. So clearly, the $1,800 for his time and $200 for the materials, he should charge $2,000 for that cabinet. Well, at $50 an hour, Wilbur calculated his annual income, 2,000 hours, would be $100,000. But after looking at his records, he found that he only made $15,000 that year. While Wilbur's talent is such that he could easily charge $50 an hour for his services, he failed to take into account all the time spent on his sales calls, time spent on his estimates, time spent on going out to measure the area, time spent on transporting materials for the cabinet, downtime, etc. In essence, his true value is much, much lower. Poor Uncle Wilbur. I personally owned an IT company in the late 80s. My professional fee for diagnosing, repairs, and programming was officially $120 an hour. These hours, however, were calculated time on site, clocking in and out of various companies. It did not account for the time spent driving there, the hours I spent driving to and from server rooms or computer parts places to purchase necessary repair parts, or miscellaneous expenditures in time. Time is money. Account for every second. After the first year, I calculated that my $120 an hour was realistically valued at $34.27 per hour. Now, that's still not bad for working over 3,700 hours that year, but hardly $120 an hour. The following year, I chose a more accurate-based method of billing. I calculated the bill based on each second for which I could account and used $40 an hour as the factor. I worked fewer hours and made much more the following year. To this day, when I create an estimate for painting a house, that estimate includes all the time spent on the estimate, going to the store for materials and supplies, and even a fraction of time spent on estimates which will not yield a job. But wait, you say, Javi, if I hire you, I'm paying for estimates you do to other people? No, you're paying for my valuable time and professionalism. Any calculation of your base hourly rate should always include each and every second spent in and on the business. If you struggle to come up with an estimate for your own time, you're not alone. Most people have a vague sense of where their 24 hours go each day. Okay, so now you have a way to calculate what your time is worth. Don't be surprised if you find that you're making under $5 an hour or even under $2 an hour. That's quite common amongst entrepreneurs. Some woodworking sole proprietors put in 12 hours a week, 7 days a week, most of the year, and end up making about $20,000 at the end of the year. Does that sound familiar to you? Well, that's $5 an hour for a craft that could easily yield 20 times more than that for just a semi-skilled woodworker. So how much should you charge? Well, the short answer is it's a combination of what you currently charge, what the rest of the world charges, part 2, and what you think it should be worth, part 3. Now you have some homework to do. Crunch the numbers and find out what your actual current value is. The value of your time greatly impacts the value of the product or service that you provide. So you will often see me interchanging product, service, or your value. For the purposes of business tips 7, 8, and 9, they are related. Next week in part 2, we'll discuss the market-based method of determining your hourly rate, which again affects your product or service price. This is Javier Unzueta with Javi's Woodshop. Thank you for watching, and please subscribe.